Yo, what is up, Crockxen clan members, Poker fans, and others who jump on this video? I'm SoresanCrockxen, and today's second viewer Friday video comes from Mr. Mudkip. I know you have some numbers after your name, but I do not recall what they are at this moment, so I apologize. But he wanted me to rank the Pokemon games with each generation. We did the anime, I believe it was last month, but he wants to know my rankings for the games. Now, as always, with any top video I make, these are my opinions. I expect a lot of hate, like I usually do when I do anything related to each generation of the Pokemon series, of the Pokemon franchise, I should say. And you don't have to agree with me. Feel free to leave your list in the comments down below. Also, I'm going to be doing this a little bit different than most people would do this. I'm actually separating them a little bit more. Like, for example, I mean in the remake sense. I'm not counting the remakes alongside the generation they came out with. I'm ranking the remakes alongside their original games. So, for example, Fire Red and Leaf Green are going to help out the first generation. Same with Heart Gold and Soul Silver. They're going to help out Gen 2. And same with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. They're going to be helping out Gen 3. So they're not going to be helping out the respective generation that came out. I'm not doing Fire Red and Leaf Green alongside Generation 3. And so on and so forth. Which might actually tip the scales a little bit. So take that with a grain of salt. But regardless, let's get started with this list. Alright, so here we go. It should come as no surprise that at the very bottom of the list, we have Generation 4. And like I said, this is literally where the whole remakes aspect really hurts. Because if I don't include the remakes, literally Generation 4 is just stuck with Diamond, Pearl, Platinum. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate because I know Gen 4 is the favorite for a majority of the fan base. But I didn't have a lot of fun with these games. This was the first time I owned all 3 copies of the game. Because before Generation 4, my sister and I played the games together. Actually, no, that's a lie. This was the second time. Because the original 3 that came out in America, I had. Red, blue, yellow. Those were mine. But as soon as the second generation came out, my sister actually got into the game, so we shared. So I had silver, she had crystal and gold. And then when we went to Generation 3, I had ruby, she had sapphire, I had emerald. And then she got leaf green, and I got fire red. So this was the first time since the first generation that I owned all 3 games in the freaking series. That doesn't help it at all. Generation 4 suffered a lot from the thing that people complain about Gen 3. HMs in Generation 4 were tedious as fuck. There was a lot of places in there that were really annoying. One prime example, the Safari Zone of Generation 4, aka the Great Marsh, is literally the worst in the entire franchise. I hate the swamp mechanic, the fact you just drop and then you're stuck in a specific area until you like wiggle out is really a hassle. Same thing with your way to Snow Point City. The snow, while it might be decent, you couldn't even see shit half the time, and then you would randomly get stuck in the snow to the point where you were walking at like half a frame. I mean, I know that makes no sense, but my point is, you were walking slower. And see, I know a lot of people who complain about Gen 4 complain about the fact that it was slow. I personally didn't notice that, but I did feel tedious playing the game. Defog was a necessary HM you had to have because there were specific areas in the game where it was foggy as hell, and if you just happened to get in a battle, you were not going to be hitting any of your moves unless they had perfect accuracy. That in itself makes the game really tedious and long for no reason. Not only that, I don't really recall most of the gym leaders in this entire series. Generation 4, for all intents and purposes, has huge gaps that come out of fucking nowhere, which makes the game, it makes it slower in terms of progression. I'm not talking about how the game was slow in itself, because the engine was slow, but it was just bad. I just did not care for most of the story. The story was bland as hell. And that's literally, I just really do not like Generation 4. Alright, so moving on to the next one, which is Generation 1. Now, Generation 1, okay, let me say this for a moment. The only reason why Generation 1 is above Gen 4 is because of the remakes. The remakes didn't exist, or Generation 4 had its own remakes, I would probably put Generation 1 at the bottom. I don't really have, I mean, I have nostalgic memories of Generation 1. I do. I remember playing through Red, Blue, and Yellow. That was the thing that started me with the franchise. It's the gate. It was the gate to the entire world of Pokemon. So there's a lot of nostalgic feelings. But in case you didn't know, Generation 1 was really weak. One of the biggest problems of Generation 1 was it was unbalanced as fuck. If you look at any Pokemon Generation 1, back in the day, Psychic types were the dominant Pokemon. The reason for that is the only weakness they had was Bug. And Bug types were pieces of shit back then. Which meant that if you had a Psychic type in your team, you're automatically a badass. Dragon types, who were supposed to be the strongest, we had Dragonite. There was only one, right? There was only one line of dragons, which was the Dragonite line. They didn't learn any Dragon type moves. The only Dragon type move out there that I recall right now is Dragon Rage. Dragon Rage didn't do shit. That literally the only thing it does is pays base 40 power. I mean, not base 40 power, base 40 hit point damage. That's all it did, which meant that they had no stab in any of their moves. So they automatically were just useless most of the time. I mean, they could learn a lot more moves than other Pokemon, but really, realistically speaking, if you had a team in Generation 1, what did most of your Pokemon consist of using? Fire Blast, Blizzard, Hyper Beam. Those were the three major moves that people used back then because nobody knew shit. That's literally all you had. And there was glitches galore. And I mean, I'm glad I never ran into any of them. But Generation 1 is the glitchiest out there. The reason why it's above Gen 4, in this case, Generation 3, with the remakes, improved on all the problems that Generation 1 had, including fixing their weaknesses. Now they're weak to Ghost and Bug. Bug have more important roles now. And the game looked better. It just looked better. So, realistically speaking, the only reason why Generation 1 is above Gen 4 is because the remakes basically improved everything that was wrong with the original. Alright, moving on to number 4, Generation 2, Gen 2, which I immediately was drawn into from the get-go. Generation 2 has my favorite Pokemon of all time, Lugia, so that already is a plus. Which actually is the reason why I've always liked Generation 2 over Generation 1. That literally has not changed. I love Generation 1, don't get me wrong, but as soon as Gen 2 came out, I was like, this series is going to be amazing, and I immediately was drawn to it, and it was automatically my favorite between the two. I didn't even fucking care. There was a lot of improvements between Generation 2 and Generation 1. A lot of the bugs that Generation 1 had were fixed. As soon as Crystal came out, we had animated Pokemon, meaning that when the Pokemon showed up, they did some sort of animation to like show that they're moving. They weren't just stagnant pixels right there that just stood there. Granted, it was only during the beginning of the battle, like they stayed stagnant for the rest of the battle. But it was nice to have some sort of animation before the match started. Not only that, the graphic overhaul was much better. The Pokemon looked actually decent. Because if you look back, Generation 1's designs for a lot of the Pokemon were really bad. We had color. The color was vibrant. The story, to me, is way better in Generation 2 than in Generation 1. I like the whole aspect of having Team Rocket come back to take over this new region. Because the boss is gone. They need something to try to bring him back. I like that idea. Plus, Silver is a badass rival. Like, Silver is probably the worst rival. And I don't mean that like as in a bad character. I mean like literally he is an asshole for the majority of the game. And in fact, I love the mechanics that they have with him. The fact I actually kind of had forgotten about this, but I recently ran into it again. Silver has a Golbat for the majority of the game, and because of the progress of him as a character change, His Golbat evolved into a Crobat, which is a Pokemon you only get through friendship. Now remember, since Silver's an asshole, he doesn't give a damn about his Pokemon, it kind of shows some character growth. Granted, this was in the remakes, and we also got to see a backstory of how Silver is Giovanni's son. It's just kind of nice to have that dynamic. And, like, they brought back having literally the Gen 2 remakes is the only generation or the only games that have Pokemon follow you besides Yellow, which is something that a lot of people like and a lot of people wish they had back, which I don't necessarily disagree with. I would love to have my Pokemon following me in 3D right now. Let me just say that right there. But it's just fun. I like Generation 2. It's really great. Hitting our number 3 spot is Generation 6. Which really, the only reason why Gen 6 is this high. I'm going to tell you this right now. The only reason why Gen 6 is this high, the way the game looks. Literally, that's it. We finally hit the 3D plane with Generation 6. One of the things that made people so excited, and it's such a simple, like this is how much Gen 6 changed the game. The fact that the fan base lost their shit when they saw our characters sit down on a fucking chair, that is huge. Now, I know that the thing, like, that seems like such a minor detail, and like, a lot of other RPGs do this, but this was the first time a Pokemon game was able to do this. Like, our characters sitting down on a chair. This was the first time we had ever had this in a Pokemon game. That in itself shows a lot of improvement. It means we've somehow stepped up our games. We're now doing things that we weren't able to do before. Before, if you were in any other Pokemon game, if you saw a seat, like a chair or a bench, you would technically, I guess you could consider it sitting on it, but you're literally just standing on top of the pixels. That's all you had. And the Mega Evolutions changed the game. Mega Evolutions changed the game. Not only that, Generation 6 introduced casual players to the competitive side of Pokemon with Super Training and the IV Checker being very prominent, and just made breeding easier. Like you had the Friend Safari, where you could get Pokemon that had 2 to 3 perfect IVs. Like that in itself means that they're really hoping that the competitive aspect of Pokemon really just flourishes now. Because if you ever tried to get in competitive before, unless you really dedicated the time to it and really went out to seek information, that shit was hard as hell. Like if you really didn't put the time and effort into it, that shit was never gonna happen. So just the fluidity of the way they made Gen 6 easier for casuals to get into is nice. But really, the game was bad in terms of story and difficulty. It was just bad. But other than that, everything was just fantastic. Visuals, the gameplay, the new Mega Evolution mechanic, and the fairy types, which I was against at the beginning, but fuck, like the fairy types now I'm actually a big, huge fan of. Now at our number 2 spot is Generation 5, which to me, Black and White has the best story. The best story of any Pokemon game out there. Just flat out, it has the best one. I love the truth versus ideals mentality. And as a character, and in himself, was such a fleshed out character. It drove the story. Charon and Bianca, complete opposites. You had Charon, who was the competitive, like I gotta beat you and all this other stuff, that side, and then you have Bianca, the one that was kind of behind, but really was just in there fun. Both of the characters were fleshed out so well. It made the rivalry between the three so fascinating. I love the gym leaders in Generation 5. Granted, one of my biggest complaints of Gen 5 is Pokemon designs. A lot of the Pokemon I really don't care about. Even to this day, I really could give a shit about like more than half of them. but I've slowly grown to accept quite a few of them. Um, Granted, I still am not like completely in love with how they look. Cause back when Generation 5 came out, there was probably like maybe 15 Pokemon that I could say off the top of my head I actually liked. But now, I mean, it's slowly getting bigger, but it's still not that prominent. But I think the really thing that makes Generation 5 so great was it was fresh. It was the way they fleshed out the story for Black and White was so amazing that it raised the bar, which is why I was so disappointed with Generation 6 and X and Y. The story is so subpar. Like, how can you have Black and White with this amazing story that has like such a high peak, and then Black and White 2? Black and White 2 was actually worse than Black and White, but it's still better than Generation 6's X and Y. I'm just disappointed that we were able to reach such a high level in terms of storytelling to just drop back down to mediocrity. I don't understand how that happened. Now, Black and White 2 still had prominent stuff. I really liked Black and White 2. I love my character and seeing how Charon and Bianca progress in the story, seeing them succeed. Charon is now a gym leader, and Bianca works for Professor Sycamore. Or not Sycamore. And Bianca works for Professor Juniper. She's a high class assistant. She's actually the one that gives you your Pokemon at the beginning of the game. So just to see how the story plays out is amazing. I love N and how they actually force you to capture the legendary because you're facing N and his. It's gonna be you against N. Your Reshiram or Zekrom against N's Reshiram or Zekrom. And it is fantastic. It's a way. N's castle was amazing. And then to fight Ghetsis was hard as hell. Like, if you really think about it, Ghetsis was broken as a motherfucker. That Hydreigon was bullshit, okay? But it made it that much better. Now, obviously, there's only one generation left, so that's what it is, Generation 3. And you're probably wondering, since I love Black and White so much, what made this generation so much better? Generation 3, the original, Ruby, and I'm talking about Ruby here. Actually, you can even add Emerald, because I got both of them. Both of those games combined, I had over 1,000 hours of game time. And I didn't do competitive shit. I didn't. It was just straight playing the game for fun. I was doing what I consider something that people hate. I love contests. Pokemon contests was my thing. And in fact, in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, well, mainly Omega Ruby because that's the one I'm really playing. I already kind of dealt with Alpha Sapphire. I love contests. Back in the originals, I got Master Rank on every single one of them. I worked my ass off to get all those. I also consider myself the Berry Master because I was constantly planting berries. And I still do that in Omega Ruby. I have so many berries, it's fucking ridiculous. I keep planting those shit too. I plant berries over and over again so I can make as many Pokeblocks as I can to improve my Pokemon stats so I can enter them in contests and kick everybody's ass. Now granted, I technically only have one Master Rank so far in Omega Ruby, but I'm going to get all of them. I am. That is my goal. I need to do that. So I need to keep planting my berries so I can keep making Pokeballs so I can make my Pokemon shine. Which is something that I know a lot of people don't give a damn about. People don't really care about Pokemon contests, but that's what made my Generation 3. Not only that, I beat the Elite Four over 20 times. Just for the fuck of it. With different teams every single time. And Ruby and Sapphire was Ruby was the first time I ever got a Pokemon to level 100. It was the first time. Not only that, I had a full team of 6 at level 100. I leveled up so many of those Pokemon to level 100. It's fucking ridiculous. And I spent so much time just playing the game to play the game. And the same thing happens with Omega Ruby. I don't want another game because I'm still playing this shit. I want to get all my Master Ranks. And I want to get my Pokemon team. Since I'm now into competitive, right? I'm making teams. That takes time. I've noticed that. And it doesn't help when I'm over here planting my berries so I can make my Pokeblocks, so I can make my contest debuts with different styles. It doesn't help to have both of these at the same time. So I need all the time in the world I can get. But it's fun. I love the aspect. I love the story in Generation 3. Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire really outshone the originals. I love the cutscenes. I love the gameplay. To me, Auras looks a million. Well, I shouldn't say that. It looks better than X and Y, in my opinion. It looks better than X and Y. Plus, once again, a new mechanic was added. We are able to climb ladders. I freaked the fuck out. I made a video about that. Like, I was like, bruh, we're climbing ladders. I don't know. I just feel like this is a step in the right direction. I really hope that this just keeps pushing the game, the franchise, just a little bit more every time, so we have new things that weren't in games before, like actually laying down on the bed. I'm just kidding. That's Gen 7 mechanics right there. But it's just fun. I love the Generation 3 has some of my favorite Pokemon too. Like, I love the majority of Gen 3 Pokemon. Flygon is my favorite Dragon type. I love Mawa. Unlike a lot of people, I actually loved Mawa in the original games. I'm super glad she had a Mega. That was awesome. I mean, I say she's a she because she looks like a girl, but that's just me. I'm just saying, like, I love a majority of the Pokemon. Blaziken, well, it's not my favorite. I still love Blaziken. Sceptile's my favorite grass starter, and is actually tied for my favorite starter of all times. Swampert, he's a fucking G. So, like, I just love Generation 3 for so many things that I just don't think there's anything that can topple it at this point, to be quite honest. I mean, I hope Gen 7 can prove me wrong, and I really hope that when they do Gen 4 remakes, I fall in love with them, because I do want to like Gen 4. Well, guys, that is it for my list. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please keep the negativity out of here. I understand that Generation 4 is a fan favorite. I don't give a damn who likes it or not. I did not have fun playing those at all. So, hate me or not, just don't even try. You can feel free to leave your list in the comments. I'm not restricting anybody. They can say whatever they want in terms of that. Don't just start bashing on me because I hate Gen 4. Like I said, it's my opinions. It's not the truth. Gen 4 isn't the worst out there. I'm pretty sure there's other people who think other generations are the worst. I know plenty of people probably think Gen 3 is the worst. I don't give a damn. It's my favorite. And that's all that needs to be stated. It's just my personal opinions. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave your list in the comments down below. Drop a like, favorite, share, post it on your social medias. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook fan page, Google Plus, all that good shit. You can even find me on Poke Amino. Poke Amino. It's the community app on iOS and Android. Feel free to do that too. I'm doing the 30-day challenge right now, and it's a lot of fun. It's exciting as fuck. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, consider joining the Crockxen clan. There's a red button down there. You can click and make sure you're up to date on my future videos. And that's going to be it. So I'm SoresanCrockxen, and I'll see you guys in future videos.